Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Dan, the voice behind ThatKaitoDan, and welcome to my review of RWBY Vol.3 Chapter 6. After we had a very colourful and musical time last episode, what did the new one bring to the table as we move into the tournament finals and some interesting times for Pyrrha? Remember folks, this is solely my opinion and you're welcome to share yours in the comments down below. And as always, spoiler warning for those who haven't seen the episode. Now let's take a big look and kick off the review for episode 6, simply titled Fall. The episode opens on Pyrrha and Ozpin with Crow in the background in mid-discussions. Ozpin's not surprised that Pyrrha will represent her team in the finals. And Pyrrha doesn't dodge the effect her team has had on them being in the finals in the first place. Though Crow makes it clear that he feels that clearly Pyrrha is the only one really pushing them towards that final. The topic changes to fairy tales of all things, and Ozpin highlights a particular tale. The story of seasons. There was once an old man who refused to leave his home. In time, 4 traveling sisters visited him, and each made some impact on the old man. The first understood his reclusive nature and inputs the idea to use the time to meditate and reflect. The second tended to his crops, brought fruit and flowers, and revitalized his gardens. The third warmed his callous heart while convincing him to embrace the world outside, and the fourth brought to the core to be thankful for all that he has. These acts of kindness led to the man rewarding the sisters with incredible power as thanks, so they may aid many more people on their travels. They accept and aim to do so until the end of days. These women were winter, summer, spring, and fall. The 4 seasons, the 4 maidens. Quite the interesting tale that's apparently lasted a long time, even around the time when Ozpin was a kid. He also mentions that this tale of fantasy may in fact be real. Though understandably, Pyrrha is kind of dismissive of such claims. Ozpin still claims as such that it's true, and mentions the power the sisters gained is quite unique. It's not a semblance, and it doesn't require the use of dust. We're talking straight, pure magic. So why is Ozpin and Crow telling Pyrrha all of this? Because they believe that Pyrrha Nikos is next in line to become the Fall Maiden. So much for Guardian, eh? Guess it also explains those leaves from the Volume 2 opening. Glinda and Ironwood arrive just in time to reveal more of their additional goal of being protectors of the world beyond being teachers and headmasters, and it's time to switch locations. We're going down deep into the bowels of the academy, inside a vault. Poor Pyrrha is really on the edge here, since there's a lot that she's been trying to digest right now, and Glinda comes to answer some of her questions, first focusing on these maidens. Apparently, the role has been around for thousands of years, the position changing once a maiden has passed on, and the title changes its host like the seasons themselves. Crow chimes in that the rules for the power changing is rather convoluted. For ages, it was only known that the power went towards young women, but in time, it was revealed that a rather personal element comes into play. The first candidate considered is whoever is in the last thoughts of the maiden beforehand. Unless it's a male or an aged woman, instead the power's next host would then be a random pick. That's pretty big information to share with just anybody, and upon asking why she's being told all this, Pyrrha's informed that she's in the know because the danger is looming ever so close now. The Grimm are on the rise, and war is on the horizon. Sadly, they won't share much more on their threat just yet until Pyrrha's actually fully committed to their cause. A cause that, as we see, has quite an issue on hand. The group reaching the end of the corridor, and we see them facing a stasis chamber of some kind. Its current inhabitant being the current Fall Maiden, Amber. Looks like we found out who that Autumn was that Crow mentioned. She's definitely in a rough state. Apparently attacked by someone and is on the verge of dying. This pod is really the only reason why she's still alive for now, though her passing on is kind of inevitable at this point. What's worse is that her power, the power of the full maiden, has been split. So herein lies a big problem. If Amber's last thought was of her attacker, or if the power in her tries to seek its other half that the attacker has, it may lead to the full magical power of a maiden being in the hands of someone that's clearly not going to use it for the good of the world. A person with unimaginable power attacked, her power currently split, and part of it in the hands of someone bad, and the threat of war knocking on the doors of peace. That's a lot that's being kept under wraps to the public. Something Pyrrha is kind of surprised that's the case, and wants to know why. Well, apparently, the information on the maidens was previously common knowledge. But attacks on them from those seeking their power led to those protecting the maidens deciding their existence is better off kept out of the public eye, to be forgotten in the world and left to be just a fairy tale. But if they share the truth now, it would go up against all that secrecy that's lasted so many years. It would go up against so many years of history, even religion, and all that could cause untold panic. Panic, of course, that could feed the Grimms' bond to negative emotions and call them in for the hunt. Despite all this secrecy, in the end, Pyrrha decides to accept the role. She'll take on the full maiden's role to protect humanity, though sadly, that's not all that's been told so far, and it's not that easy. While Amber is indeed near death, she is still alive. Thus, her power cannot flow naturally into Pyrrha, something the adults are aware of and has led to Ironwood trying to form a plan B. The general and his kingdom have been researching aura in how it's used, what it's made of, and how it works. Through this, they've been able to seemingly find a way to capture aura and transfer it from a person into something else. Or in this case, someone else. Pyrrha. We're talking about someone else's aura, basically their life energy, and tying it to another person, even as they are near death. Something that Pyrrha finds really wrong, and even Glinda feels the same. Sadly, it seems despite this, it's a desperate move for desperate times. Ironwood's plan to allow Pyrrha to become the new full maiden and stop the remaining power from going to Amber's attacker means that Pyrrha must accept having Amber's aura inside of her, the source of the maiden's power, connected to her own. A risky move that Ozpin highlights might not work and might change Pyrrha herself in the process. A decision lays in front of Pyrrha then: accept or decline. A call the adults do allow her time to sit on, but one she must make before the end of the Vital Festival tournament. The enemy has made their first move, and they must prepare for whatever the second move will next be. Holy hell, that was some heavy stuff. And we're not done yet, folks. And hey, if it's not clear who they're talking about at the end there, the scene cuts to Cinder Fall in the stands of Amity Coliseum, because it's now time for the tournament finals. We quickly scan over Yang and the rest of the finalists. The aforementioned Miss Xiaolong, this feather-capped chap, Sun, which means his team won. Next to him, a true Atlasian if I ever saw it. The man I'm dubbing Shroud until further notice. Everyone's favourite ginger robot Penny. Everyone's favourite murdering wise-ass Mercury. And a still very shaken and contemplating Pyrrha. As usual, the commentary team is still Porter Nublek, and they go over the setup for the final matches. Unlike the previous rounds, the fighters will not know their opponent, as every match will be randomized before they take place. There will be no preparation time for the combatants. I say randomized in a questionable tone because of course we know that Cinder still has control of the brackets, so we can thank her for the first fight of the finals being a fight that's a long time coming. Mercury Black versus Yang Xiaolong. Arm gauntlets versus leg gauntlets. Another twist to the final system is that there's no more biomes. The only stage is the central piece that hovers above the floor. Ring outs and low aura levels are still the only ways to win. So the stage is set, the lights are on, and the two fighters share some final words of bantering before the fight kicks off, in more ways than one. As many expected, a fight from these two is a super quick and fierce showcase of some close quarters combat. While you could say that Mercury has the slight advantage with his more agile nature, and Yang not really being strong against people who use kicks, the two of them are very equally matched throughout most of this fight. Mercury even nearly gets launched out of the ring, if not for a well-timed blast propelling him right back into the scuffle. The match really swings into his favour as he fires off a ton of blasts, and after spiking Yang into the ground, he sends the spiral of ranged fire down too. But of course, you can't rule out Yang too easily, as the firecracker heats up a semblance, taking every hit that she's had and throwing it right back at Merc. A trademark Dempsey roll and a double-decker punch eventually smashing Merc into the ground and gives the first finals win to Team RWBY and Yang Xiaolong. But it was certainly a close fight, as the screen points out just how close Yang was to hitting the aura limit. But she wishes Merc better luck next time. And then, things get real. Mercury, after an odd sound chimes in, tries to sneak attack Yang with a dive kick. But Yang's quick to halt the strike with one of her own, crushing not just Mercury's attack, but also the dude's leg. Yet she took RWBY's advice about breaking her leg quite literally. Still, you can't blame her, right? Mercury tried to attack her after the fight. Everyone in the crowd is shocked about what happened, and looks like the negative reception from the crowd has picked up the senses of the Grim over in Mountain Glen. Even those hulking Goliaths. Well, maybe that's something for Yang and Co to deal with later, right? Hang on. Why is Yang surrounded by the Atlas military? Why is Mercury feigning that Yang attacked him for no reason? We saw it was him who made the first move, right? Oh boy. Yeah, it seems something wild went down. To Yang, she was reacting to a cheap attack from Mercury. But to everyone else, to the crowd, to her friends, to everyone watching the tournament around the world, she attacked him with no cause, as shown on the monitor. This is not good at all, as the episode ends with Yang trying to make sense of what just happened. So, how about we go into the negatives and positives? Actually, unlike last time, I'm once again having no negatives to speak of. So let's go right into the positives, cause there's a lot. The obvious first highlight is, hot damn, that was one of the most heavy and tense episodes in the show's history. This episode to me feels even more tense than the ending of No Breaks, and has left a bigger impact already than even the reveal of Blake's cat faunus ears or Raven's debut. The plot elements introduced and the ending scene are some major moments for the show. And after the episode, I won't deny it, I was speechless. I seriously spent the next hour just in shock, and it took me a while to digest everything that I just watched. The structure and weight in this episode will be remembered for some time. Framed so well to hit hard that it's placed two characters many people love, including myself, into the firing range of some really big situations, most notably with Pyrrha and the introduction to the four maidens. This looks to be one of the biggest arcs of the show, something that may last and carry on through many of the show's volumes. And through its reveal, it's already made impacts. It's introduced fairy tales that span generations, revealed a vital topic of the past beyond that of the Great War, and the role of the maidens that's far larger in importance and position than any of the previous huntsmen or huntresses we may know. A group that also carries power that, in its very existence, breeds its own new concepts to the world. The idea of true, pure magic. Power that's not tied to dust or semblances. Protective figures that has been passed down through thousands of years, while being a target for those who wish to abuse their power. It's given this world a lore bomb of epic proportions, far more than I think any of us expected when Ospin and Co. first mentioned a guardian role. And with it, it's also given something for the villains, because now we know a true target for Cinder and her plans, getting that power that she's apparently already gained a portion of, and something of a true danger beyond that of toppling the government or the kingdoms. And of course, this is also tied to Pyrrha, who seems to be finally getting an arc to herself that a lot of people have wanted, though I don't think many of us expected something like this. She looks to be a major player into the seasonal maidens plot for the next little while now, and hopefully this leads into exploring more of her story and more of her character, as well as also highlight how it might affect her team, especially Jean, should Pyrrha take on that full maiden's power. Even just being informed on so much world-shaking details and such a risky plan showed us an unseen side of a very shaken up Pyrrha, even leading into possibly being set up to fight in the finals round, which is something that she's usually calm for. Then of course there's the ending, which will hit Yang for a long time. Remember, she's now seen all over the world as a violent person that attacks someone after a fight, and it may take a long time for her to even slightly change that negative reception from this. This is going to be something really new for her character, and I'm super excited to see where it takes her. As much as this episode tested Pyrrha's character, this episode ended with Yang set to face her own tests, and it's such an emotional end to an already powerful episode. What helped the intensity and the dramatic feel was definitely the soundtrack. The MVP last week continued strongly here, this time working alongside the events a bit more to add extra blows to all the emotions carried. Especially so in the very eerily and rather unnatural scene in the vault. Not just feeling kind of cold and otherworldly, cautious and foreboding, but also in how unwelcoming it was, and it kind of made it very clear through Pyrrha, kind of making it feel like she really is out of her natural element. The music also hitting the mark in the episode's fight with some high octane beats, and the gripping final moments that I think was a piano version of I Burn, a chillingly lonely tune to end on. I gotta praise that fight as well. While I can definitely say it feels more like a round one of a fight between Mercury and Yang, and I'm not shaking the idea that Mercury was still not giving it his all for the sake of the plan, the RWBY crew did an excellent job in the animation for this very up close and personal fight, and was balanced nicely for two very similar melee fighters. Voice acting praise of the episode is one of the hardest I've had to call. Everyone gave a very strong show, but I gotta give it to Jen Brown as Pyrrha for expertly playing Pyrrha in an episode where she had to make sure Pyrrha's range of emotions was notable, easy to read, and honest. So usually after the voice acting segment, I start to close the video. But not this time. No, I got a side helping of speculation to share before I do. Starting with things around our mysterious headmaster of Beacon, Ozpin. I've always had a feeling that the man's semblance ties into a lot of his mystery, and after his early scene with Pyrrha, I'm feeling more than confident about my guesswork. Over this series, he's been dubbed as a man who's experienced a lot, and in his own words, has made more mistakes than any man, woman, or child. In this episode, he chuckles the notion that the story of seasons has been around since his days as a kid, but this is a tale that's apparently been around for ages, and I think he has as well. His hidden past, him constantly referring to making many mistakes more so than others, the gears in his office, and his semblance teased in the World of Remnant episode that makes him more of a man? I think Ozpin's semblance is to do with time, and somehow has made him be around for a great load of years. He might even be that old man in the story of the seasons that granted the sisters the power. It's why he's made so many mistakes in his eyes. He's been around long enough to tally up such a large amount to feel that way. Calling it now, he's much more older than he lets on. Next up, there's the Grimm, with a kind of a safe bit of speculation. I think that small scene of them hints that we may have that big invasion that's hinted in the opening, especially when the Goliaths were shown reacting too. Remember, Oobleck said that they'd only attack humanity at this point when the time is right. They've lasted long enough to know when the time is right to fight the humans in a battle where they could possibly win. If they are reacting to the negative emotions spawned from Yang being set up as a cheater and a criminal in front of tons of people, that's possibly a plot from Cinder's lot to form a catalyst of negative emotions for a big time invasion, unlike that of the Veil Breach. Finally, let's look at Yang and the closing moments. She seems to be the only one who thought Mercury was about to attack her. Everyone else thinks that she struck him for no reason. So what was it? Camera trickery? A move from Mercury or Emerald? No, definitely not. At least not to me. If it was just those in the arena watching, perhaps. But that would be some trick to convince them and everyone watching around the world. No, I think it's kind of clear who's to blame when you remember that sound that I mentioned before Mercury's dive kick. It sounds very similar to audio made during illusionary attacks of Neo. Neo, without being caught, somehow was able to cast her illusionary powers onto Yang, so she was made to believe that Mercury was set to attack her, thus forming the negative emotions for the Grimm, and at that same time, makes Yang possibly get arrested and out of Cinder's hair. Even with the world being a place that has semblances, it might be hard to prove Yang's innocence, and Cinder might be banking on Yang being a well-known hothead, whose emotions play heavily into her combat, which would make in the public eye be a bit more of a supported violent outburst. Not to mention, she doesn't have much in the way of evidence. Her team could obviously try to defend her, but would likely be ignored as team-biased opinions. Bad news, since they were the only ones who have met Neo besides Yang, and know of her powers. The only other person who could aid Yang might be Coco. She too was a victim of illusionary tactics in the fights previous, though it might not be enough to save Yang. Yang being arrested might lead to two interesting scenarios. For one, she may be put in the same prison as Torchwick, since Ironwood is the head of security for the tournament, which could breed some rather fun moments there. But it also could lead into some stuff with Raven, Yang's absent mother. We've still yet to explore that stinger scene from the end of Volume 2, where Yang apparently met Raven and saw her face over at Beacon school grounds. So perhaps this scene takes place now. Raven coming to her rescue perhaps, or something like that. And that's it for the speculation and for the video. Oh boy, that was one hell of a roller coaster ride. After last week's more fun and light-hearted ride, this was a big contrast with its plot introductions, world exploration, and fan-favorite characters getting hit really hard in their own way. This for me is one of the best episodes of the series, the new staple of this volume as well, and could be seen down the line as the game changer episode. The episode that sparks the volume, welcoming some more darker tones at points, more grim moments and storylines, and the moment that the show finally explored its world. I do kind of worry if the show can balance all the big plot elements it has, but I am hopeful, and I doubt the series will lose its comedy moments as well. Its vibrant trains won't stop from this point on, but kind of like the Harry Potter works, I think Fall has already stamped its mark as the episode where things start to change a bit. I cannot wait for next week's episode though now. Yeah, that's right. Yep, I hope you like cliffhangers that you gotta sit on for a while, because folks, that was the last episode of the year. Next week, there will be a break, and there instead will be a Q&A with the cast. The final entry of the year will then follow the week after with a World of Remnants special, and then the show will finally return on the 2nd of January with episode 7, the first episode of the new year. So can you wait until then? What's your thoughts on the seasonal maidens plot? Are you worried for Pyrrha and Yang? And how did you feel after watching that emotional episode? Share your opinions down in the comments. I definitely want to hear them after this episode. Also be sure to follow me on Twitter at ThatKaitoDan for RWBY info posts, project updates, and other random stuff from yours truly. And until next time, I still need to lie down after that last episode. So until then, have a good day or good night, and peace out.